Hi, and welcome back. I'm Bill Quinn, and I am joined today by Nic Hulscher, who is epidemiologist and administrator at the McCullough Foundation. Nic, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So I had noticed that in the past weeks, and going back even a little bit longer, you've been talking about compounds that can have and are being shown to have efficacy against cancers. And given the fact that folks are reporting more cancers, more turbo cancers across the population, I thought this was a very important topic to get us together and discuss. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks for having me. And yeah, a very important topic. Cancers are propagating among the global population.
And it's not getting better. It seems to continuing to be getting worse. Yes. So take us through, if you could, your background with the McCullough Foundation, and how these findings are being discovered, perhaps where they're coming from, and some of the ways that we can see that there might be efficacy here with these compounds, please.
Yes, so I'm an epidemiologist. I have a Master of Public Health degree from the University of Michigan. And so I have formal training in looking at disease patterns and, being able to read studies basically. And so I'm at the McCullough Foundation. We've published now over 20 scientific peer-reviewed studies since 2023, looking at various aspects of COVID-19 vaccines, these cancers, these turbo cancers, and many other things. But what we do is we investigate, pertinent public health issues, and one of them is this widespread cancer debacle. Now, all of a sudden, most people will know somebody in their family who has developed turbo cancer, very rare, aggressive cancers that kind of appear at stage 4 very quickly. And we do see cancer rates rising in younger age groups with official data. And so we know for sure it's happening now. It's been in an upward trajectory for the past many decades, but it's really took a step up since 80% of Americans were injected with genetic injections. And so one very promising class of compounds, antiparasitics, has shown now in hundreds of preclinical, which basically means in animal models and in the test tube, so in vitro studies, shows immense promise in helping to defeat cancer.
That's amazing. And one of those compounds that seems to have grown in people's minds because of its efficacy against a number of things is ivermectin, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We have ivermectin, we have fenbendazole, we have mebendazole, we have all these antiparasitics, but the two that most of these alternative, I would say, oncologists that are having large successes are usually giving ivermectin and fenbendazole in combination. And so these two show the most promise in the literature. And so first we can start with ivermectin. There was a systematic review of ivermectin use in real cancer patients, and they also looked at all the preclinical studies. And so this came out last year. It's the most comprehensive to date, so it synthesizes all of the literature on this. And so what the main finding was, in the cases of human cancer patients taking ivermectin, there was zero safety concerns, no serious adverse events. They tolerated it fine, and all of them were undergoing chemo. So it's not interfering with any of that. And so that's obviously key. But the next thing was the problem was the human studies were not assessing efficacy of ivermectin in cancer. These cancer patients had parasitic infections, and so they were given ivermectin for the parasitic infections. The researchers were not assessing if it had anti-tumor effects. So that's the downside of the human studies so far. That's why we need human trials assessing its cancer effects. But they looked at the animal studies, And there's literally over 12 distinct mechanisms that ivermectin helps to shrink and kill cancer cells. And this spans all sorts of things. It inhibits cancer cell signaling, so they can't signal to each other as well to help grow. And it literally kills some of these cancer cells like from the inside, inducing apoptosis in those cells, in the test tube and in some of these animal models. But this is across, so it's been shown now to have anti-cancer effects across about 12 distinct types of cancers. And so very promising literature so far, but yeah, we need human trials.
So you mentioned in the course of explaining that the study that was reported last year was with people that were already undergoing chemotherapy. So are there any suggestions that taking ivermectin and these other compounds interferes in any way with the chemotherapy? So it can be a layered, I guess I'll call it a layered approach to treatment. Yes.
Yeah, there's no indication that it interferes with chemo whatsoever. And some of these reports, though, like so some of them were like 10, 12-year-olds with cancer. They took ivermectin, they were undergoing chemo, but they stayed in remission. So some of these had long follow-up periods. And so,
Mm.
it's possible that the ivermectin in those specific cases did help keep these children in remission with no evidence of disease, or what's called NED. And so that's very promising. But we have anecdotal reports by oncologists and doctors that are not yet published in the literature that do indicate complete remissions with these anti-parasitic compounds. And so many testimonials of patients who have taken them. And Dr. William Mackis, on his Substack, you'll find them. These patients, their tumors are literally just shrinking, going away, and their conventional oncologists are usually shocked.
Ivermectin is not a new compound, is it? It's been around for quite some time, and as I recall, it got several notices, and I want to say awards for if its efficacy in other types of treatments. Can you talk to that just briefly?
Yes, I believe it was discovered in the 70s by someone in Japan. I think they were looking at bacterium in a golf course, and they identified one, and they found some compound in it that has showed very potent anti-parasitic effects. And it basically, you expose parasites to this compound, it literally just kills them, but it doesn't kill you, does not kill your cells. And so very promising. And from then on, it became like the worldwide standard for anti-parasitic treatment, saved hundreds of thousands, millions of lives, and won a Nobel Prize, about like 10 years ago, 2015, I think. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a very, very important compound. But the safety, it's safer than Tylenol. I mean, it's really that safe. The adverse events, minor adverse events you may have are, it does act as a central nervous system depressant by some degree. So what that means is you can, if you take a high dose, you may feel a little dizzy, a little sleepy, but it's not going to kill you, and it's not super toxic to the liver like Tylenol is. And so,
Mhm.
so just think of that. That's what you need to think of. It's safer than Tylenol, safer than Motrin, and it's showing all of these promising effects.
Wow. Are there efforts across the U.S. in certain states to make this available, and have they come to fruition as yet, or are you guys tracking that?
There are a multitude of states with bills to make ivermectin over the counter. Some have already made it over the counter. I
Hmm.
believe it's over 16 states now with these bills, or maybe it's over 20 by now. But I haven't kept track of the exact number, in the past few months, so I'm not sure. But yeah, states are moving to do this. It's people want it. The citizens want this access to this drug, which shows with the extreme high safety profile and very promising effects through a multiple range of diseases. And we have to remember parasitic infections also. Like it would be nice to go to a CVS, get ivermectin over the counter, and have it on hand in case you go in the jungle somewhere and swallow a bunch of swamp water. People would like to have that on hand, so it's helpful for that as well.
It seems to be, and I don't have the studies in front of me, but it seems to be across a broad spectrum of conditions that there's evidence of efficacy by ivermectin and some of the other compounds you mentioned. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons that people have said, gosh, we do need to have this on hand for our family. And there are ways for folks to get it today, but it would be, the part of the argument that I think needs to be considered is, why wouldn't you make this available? And the first concern would be safety. You've just spoken to a lot of that. And then the one question might be availability. And this is a relatively easily made compound, and is even today available in a number of different mechanisms. Yes.
Yes. I mean, you can buy this at Tractor Supply, for your horse. I mean, and so that's why they started to make fun of it. The FDA started to mock it ridiculously, calling it horse paste. But that's because the FDA failed to do their job and to authorize this for humans, and they suppressed the data. It shows potent effects against SARS-CoV-2. There's over 105 studies now with 200,000 patients, and the ivermectin decreases symptom severity, hospitalization, time to symptom resolution, so the infection clears faster. All sorts of very positive things in patients who took ivermectin when they were infected. So yeah, we have all sorts of positive effects.
I think the NIH has even acknowledged this in some of their publications, have they?
Yes, they have. And recently, one thing that was very big was on the NIH's X account. They finally said and acknowledged that ivermectin shows promise for cancer, and they said they're launching some studies on it. And so now it's become mainstream that these show immense promise. Florida, I believe, is leading the way here in the research for it, as revealed by Florida Surgeon General Joe Ladapo. And other states, they got to get on board, or they're going to be left behind.
Right, and the people are going to be asking, why are we left behind? I wanted to bring up a couple of the things that you had recently brought out and ask if you can just expand on some of these just to give us a sense. One of the other compounds that you mentioned was fenbendazole, which is another antiparasitic, and there appears to be good promise here as well. Can you take us through this, please?
Yes, this paper was by Dr. William Makis and colleagues, and so he's at the forefront of ivermectin, fenbendazole in cancer, with thousands and thousands of success cases. And he published 3 verified cases who took fenbendazole, and none of them received chemo. All of them were stage 4 cancer. Some of them received radiation. Some had a stent of surgery. But regardless, all of them took fenbendazole daily, and all 3 of them got either complete remission or near complete remission. And so this spanned stage 4 breast cancer, prostate, and melanoma. And so we have to remember, stage 4, this cancer was spread everywhere, right? It wasn't localized. And so they're taking the fenbendazole, and it's quite significant to achieve NED, no evidence of disease, from a stage 4 cancer. And just these 3 cases should initiate large scale clinical trials to assess this in larger population sizes as soon as possible, because again, these are very cheap, very safe, but the problem is they're not patentable. So big pharma, they're not very happy about this.
So when we think about reasons that some groups might not be as apt to press forward on making these compounds available. It would seem that those that have an interest in other treatments that are perhaps more costly, more beneficial to their business profile, would not necessarily get in front of this and say, "Oh yeah, we need to make fenbendazole and ivermectin available." They might poo-poo that. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now, too much money is being made from chemotherapy.
Mm,
That's, obviously it's standard of care at the moment, and the patients have to pay tens of thousands of dollars, and it doesn't work most of the time, unfortunately, and sometimes they die a slow and agonizing death. Unfortunately, it extends survival barely a few months at the most in many cases. So yeah, it's time to look at alternatives to chemo.
yeah. So I just want to underscore this before we bring this down. So these were patients that were at stage 4, which is a very quite advanced stage of the cancer spreading. And I seem to recall that, stage 4 in anything is particularly troubling, but stage 4 melanoma is typically quite, quite close to being terminal. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Because it's not only went to the skin; it went throughout all the organs, and there's no form of surgery that can get rid of all of these
Right.
cancerous tumors. It's not possible, and so it definitely appears the fenbendazole played a major role here.
Yeah. One of the areas that people have expressed real concern about is a type of cancer known as glioblastoma, I believe, if I'm getting the pronunciation correct. And
Correct.
there's some emerging indications there as well. You brought this out, let's see, in February, and perhaps you could talk us through what we're covering here.
Yeah, this paper recently came out that formulated ivermectin to become basically the smaller particle size, because right now there's some barriers to reaching the brain for brain cancers such as glioblastoma. So glioblastoma is one of the most lethal cancers in existence. Literal just 15-month survival time on average. So you're
Wow.
diagnosed, there's a good chance you're going to die within a year, unfortunately. And this study wanted to see what was the ivermectin going to help shrink it in animal models. And so they developed a nano formulation by making these particles very small and administered it intranasally, so through the nose, in the
Huh.
best attempt to reach the brain. And it appears they were definitely successful. It did reach the brain, it reached the tumors, and it shrunk them by 70%. And there was no harm to any of the healthy neural cells or neurons. And so it kept the healthy cells intact, and it shrunk the glioblastomas quite significantly. And so many people have glioblastoma now. They would love to, jump in a clinical trial with this. So this is another avenue that needs immediate study in humans.
Wow. And as you say, it's very notable that this is one of the most troubling types of cancers. And many people, I think, have known someone that unfortunately came down and was diagnosed with this type of cancer. And it seems that it too is increasing in the percentage of incidence across the population for reasons that, go beyond where what we could probably cover today, but it is important. So we've talked about the fact that ivermectin's been around for decades. It's been found safe. It's used today in a number of different settings. Obviously anti-parasitic, but it seems to be effective against other things like SARS-CoV and other conditions. It can be used in a setting where it's not the only treatment, but it supplements a particular treatment that might be chemotherapy or something else. So we're not saying this has to be used instead of these other treatments. And it's simply making it available. It's more of a opening the door to a treatment that today people might have more of a challenge getting and applying in their situation. It would seem to many to be almost a no-brainer. Why would this not be done in virtually every state in the US?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I mean, NyQuil's over the counter, and you take enough NyQuil, people take that to get high. I mean, it's literally a potent drug. Dex is the abbreviation. I don't know what the full name is of that, but regardless, I mean, some of these over-the-counter drugs are far more dangerous on a dose-to-dose basis if you compare to the same dose. And so, safety should not be a issue here regarding this compound. And even I mean, what they sell. I mean, just caffeine pills, for example. You take too many caffeine pills, you'll have a heart attack. They sell that over the counter. So yeah, we got to start thinking of what does the population want and what does the science show. And quite clearly, ivermectin fits both of those bills. It fits the scientific category. And then once you open it up, to over-the-counter use, I think that will also help expand research into these compounds as well as the barriers kind of break down and more people become aware of it. It will help accelerate the scientific progress on these antiparasitics and cancer.
So, Nic, you've done just an amazing amount of work, both with what we've discussed today, but also other conditions and findings. I want to make sure people know how to follow your work and the work of the McCullough Foundation. Let me bring this up. So, this is your account on X. Yes, is this a great place for folks to keep up with you?
Yes, definitely. At NICHULSCHER. You can follow me on X, but you can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, as well as thefocalpoints.com. That is our Substack.
Great. And then want to make sure we give a shout out to the foundation itself and also Dr. Peter McCullough, who many people know his name now for 5 years or more of solid work following the advent of SARS-CoV-2 and everything that's come from that, along with now this emerging need for treatment of conditions that continue to expand. So a big thank you to you and thank you to the foundation and of course Dr. McCullough. All right, any last thoughts for folks as we prepare to break?
I would just say that legislators should be aware that if they jump on the ivermectin bandwagon now, they won't be left behind. States that do not, they will look foolish. They will look foolish. And again, this is very important. We have to start looking at and authorizing safe, cheap, and seemingly effective compounds for constituents in the state.
That's great. Well, thank you for being with us today. And we're always here if we need to help with other things that need to come out. And we'll look forward to the next findings. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.